Saturday at 10 a.m. Your mind will dream again.
And here we go. Yeah, looking. Keep looking. Welcome back to Signals on 91.3 this morning. Very special thanks to Mr. Obina, who would not stop stressing me. Well, we're discussing ethical investments for women, and I have with me a first-class graduate of Math and Computer Science, MSc with distinction in Financial Mathematics, certified expert in Sustainable Finance, certified Financial Risk Manager with 15 years of experience working in financial services, including as a strategy and risk consultant with Big Four consulting firms, and as a head of operations head of Risk Nigeria MSME's Credit Fund. She possesses solid quantitative and qualitative skills and strong track record of operationalizing World Bank funded credit funds in Africa and Eastern Europe, fundraising and business development team. She's a team leader and a successful delivery of complex projects, including working with and managing cross-border teams Europe and Africa. She is the co-founder of Ithaca Limited and Jade Advisory Limited. Okay. I have with me, with warm welcome, Amina Mohammed. Did I get it? Yes. Mohammed.
Thank you for having me, Mohammed.
Mohammed. Sorry. Not intentional. So that they don't give me cane. Now we're discussing ethical investment for women. Why women?
Why women? Because more and more we're seeing women as economic powerhouses.
Okay.
We have women setting up more businesses, more women in the workplace, and we have more wealth among women than before. But more importantly, we have women as breadwinners, and it's important that we continue to educate ourselves about how to ensure sustainability, financial sustainability for women, so that we can continue to empower future generations through women, through men, but of course,
women first. We're not blaming gender, but again, when we say women are breadwinners, I sometimes feel that responsibility. So and I'd pause. I was with a friend. She was at my office, and she said, "The woman have become a man already, and I'm having to carry everything by myself." And she's very hardworking. She's anything she sees her hands to do, she does it. But then there's a constant need for money. There's a constant need for, okay, where do I put my funds? The money is not enough. So let's say the woman buys materials. She sells materials, and instead of her putting the money aside, that okay, this money will generate money for me to be able to get more goods, she then uses the money to buy food for herself and her child. And so how then do we, and so when he called me and said, oh, we need to talk about investment for women, I'm like, okay, so how do we then demystify investing first, keeping money aside? I know that our mothers used to keep money in one colo or under the pillow and all of that, but we've moved from there to having investment. But what kind of investment? So the floor is yours.
I mean, so to what you were saying, the truth is there would always be expenses, right?
Yes.
And sometimes expenses take the day. So it's not every day you're in a position where you can save. But there are also times when you're in a position where you can save and we don't. So we need to be mindful that whether you're doing business, whether you're employed, it's sometimes just cyclical. And sometimes you have to put aside some money that will generate money for you when the business or the work is not going according to plan. So I think, of course, we need to not also put ourselves in a position where we're expecting people to squeeze more than they have to. Sometimes you just have to take care of what you have to take care of. But sometimes when you do have the money to put aside, you need to have better awareness of how you go about deciding what you put aside. And then what do you then do with what you put aside? We need to have also awareness around that, okay? And why should you invest? It's exactly so that you're not working forever, right? It's exactly so that you're not hustling forever. And it's also so that you also have that rainy day fund when that core business or that core job that looks good today just hits a little bit of a roadblock, just something that you can always
Plenty
fall back.
roadblocks.
Well, plenty roadblocks. But just let's remember that, look, when the going is good, it's not always good, right? So when the going is good, you need to have some kind of formula about what you set aside for the rainy day. Of course, always use the money to cover your most important cost, but also have in mind that of whatever you have left, you need to put away a certain percentage that is easy and convenient for you on a consistent basis to take care of the rainy day.
Now, you're a lover of math. Why math?
It was
Because
just
we're about to run
natural. It was
numbers.
just natural for me, I guess. It was just my happy place, I guess.
Math, happy
Yes.
place.
Yes. For some reason, I can't explain it, but yes, it was always been my happy place.
Okay, so let's run numbers. So we have 100 naira. That's basic. No, 100 naira is no longer 100. Let's say we have 1,000 naira. Right? And how do we set aside? And there are bills piled up for that 1,000 naira. Because every time people say keep money aside, I sometimes my accountant had to hold me to my neck that, Oshodi, you need to save up. And I looked at it. I said, okay. I kept looking at the money and I kept looking at the expenses. And I'm like, bros, we're going. I want to die, yo. And he was trying to explain it to me. And fair enough, it did explain to me very well. But by the time I ran into a snag, I had to fall back on and then I was now happy that I listened to him. But that's me. For a lot of other women, we have 1,000 naira. The child is going to go to school. And so let's use mothers, for example. It would be nice. Let's use mothers, for example. And say, okay, we have 1,000 naira. And they have to buy gas, they have to buy this, they have to buy that. On 1,000 naira. How do we remove 1 naira for investments?
Okay, so maybe let's even start with someone like you.
Yeah.
No. Let's even
Go
start.
ahead.
I mean, like, it's not easy for. Funny thing is, it's not easy for anyone.
Okay.
Because, for some people it's real life expenses.
Yes.
But for some people it's like the pressure to buy a bag. You know what I mean? So let's just say it's not easy for everyone. But let's even take someone like you said. When you look at that 1,000 naira, are the expenses up to 1,000 naira?
It's even overflowing.
Or it's over 1,000 naira?
Yes.
Then I'm sorry, it's not necessarily the time to set money aside because expenses have to be taken care of. Okay, but is it always the case that the expenses are over the income? Right? When it's not the case, what do you do with the difference? So that's the question we need to reflect on, and that's the question we need to answer.
So when we have surplus, what do we do
When
with
you
surplus?
have the surplus, what do you do with the surplus? Yeah, maybe 10 out of 12 times the expenses are more than the income, but the 2 times that it is not up to, what do you do with the surplus? That's the first thing. Recognizing when that surplus happens, recognizing when that windfall happens, and then reflecting sincerely on what we do with it. Okay, so as difficult as it is, whatever difference we have, let's start thinking about what we do with it, and let's start thinking about why it's important what we do with it. Do you understand?
Okay.
I'll give you an example of a woman I worked with some time back. Basically, her husband passed away, and she had a lot of inheritance. Okay, and I think the reason why she became passionate about creating awareness for other women with respect to investing, generally other women, is because she thinks about when she had that investment and she did not know what to do with it. So today it's harder for her to invest because, of course, children are now in university, we now have foreign currency to pay, school fees, and all of that. So it's tighter now. But then when she thinks about when she had an initiative and she thinks about what she did with it, she doesn't want people to make the same mistake. Okay, so we need to make sure we educate ourselves around what we do, or what avenues do we have available to us when we do have excesses. That's the first thing. That's the most basic thing, right? And then so that when you now have it, you now know what to do with it. And apart from that, you can also engage differently. Okay, you can also engage differently. So I know a housewife who, for example, what her husband would typically give her is just money for the things in the house. But the day she became more aware of investment avenues, do you understand? In 1 year, the same man put up 2 solid investments for her because she was engaging him differently. When you don't know, you can't even have that engage. Conversation.
Yes, true.
But now you know, you're like, you see, there's this project I heard about. I would really like to have one of those, you know? If you don't have the knowledge, how would you do any of that? And of course, it's not a question of how much. It's just a question of starting where you are. Do you understand?
So how much is too much to start with where we are?
Whatever you have, you start there. There's a reason why, let's say the Stanbic IBTC investment fund would tell you can start with, let's say, 5,000 naira. You start where you are. But then, of course, there are also other investment opportunities that say you have to start with 1 million naira. The reason why you start where you are is that you only build on it. And you start where you are because once you've started, you now know one thing. The next time you want to do this again, you now know another thing. Do you understand what I mean?
So
and then your knowledge,
process.
exactly, your knowledge grows exponentially, your savings grow exponentially, and your investment grows exponentially. But if you don't know, you can't even start.
So somebody's listening and saying that, so what kind of investments should I put my money in? And before you answer that, I read an article of a thriving young lady who's a tailor, and she wrote on Facebook that, for some of us that don't have trust funds and we don't have rich daddies and uncles and aunties, it's ajo, the old ajo that is saving them. And then I look at how ajo, some will say pack today, pack tomorrow, and some is like, it's every day. I admire them. I'm like, okay, that's what is it that I don't even know. I just think I don't understand, but I see how it's helped people. Cooperatives helped people buy what they need, and then they can continue. So, for someone who's going to, what do you think about it?
About Ajo?
Yes, the old.
No, I mean, you start where you are. You start with what you know, and then you build on it, right? Okay. Personally, I don't do Ajo. Why? Because I have discipline to save in any case. Okay. With Ajo, if I'm not used to the practice of saving, Ajo forces me to save. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And guess what I'm packing? What I'm packing is what I've saved over time. Is what I've saved over time. So what Ajo does for you is it gives you the structure.
Okay.
Do you understand? And the discipline to save more consistently than you might have done on your own. Do you understand?
Have people holding your name.
So if it works for you, please, by all means, right? If you like me, are okay to set aside something on a regular basis, why not as well? But as well, what you do with it is important. Not keeping money in the bank. That savings, if it's in the bank, you'll spend it.
You go, you know where the money is.
You'll spend it. So it's not even growing in the way that you're targeting. Do you understand? And the reason why we're even discussing ethical investment today, by the way, is because, you see, 95% of women apparently invest based on their values. So a typical woman does not see what they can relate with. They would rather keep that money in the bank. Or some women, let me not say typical. Some women don't see what they can relate with. They keep that money in the bank. Okay. So you see, this thing is in layers. First, we talked about, okay, what do you have? When can you save? Maybe December is your good month. Maybe it's only December you can save, for example, end of the year, in the whole year, for example. Know where you're at. Know when you can actually invest, okay? Then know how much you can also save / invest. Okay. how much you can also save. Okay.
Yeah, comfortable saving.
Then you're comfortable saving. Okay. No matter where you're at, but how much are you comfortable saving? Then next, we're now talking about, okay, you've decided on what you can save, right? Where can you save it? Having the knowledge, having the awareness, having the drive. Okay. And we'll talk as well about why you should have the drive. And next, when you know all those things, you can now think about what channels you can use. The world now is your oyster. You have digital channels, right? And you can choose which ones you can relate with. For example, I invested in Sukuk some years back, the federal government Sukuk, and you're driving in different parts of Nigeria and you see a big poster that says, oh, this road was funded by Sukuk, or so. And I feel good. Like, you see, I want to invest in things that I can see, things that, I can appreciate, things that I can see grow and all of that. And it makes me happy. It makes me want to do more. Okay. So there are different layers and we need to talk through the layers, and you need to sit down and create awareness for yourself and knowledge for yourself about each layer. Okay. And yes.
So that layer, we're going back because it's almost like a class. Why do you need to save? That's one. 2 is where you're saving to. 3 is how much is comfortable for you to save. Okay. 4 is, must we really save?
What do you do with the savings?
Yes. After, because some will say, oh, I've saved and I'm spending my interest on the investment.
Yeah.
So why am I saving in the first place?
Exactly. Okay. So I'll change it to the last layer. I'll start from the top, which is not even why am I saving, why am I investing?
So we should move it from saving to investing.
Exactly. So why am I investing? You see, personally, as much as I can avoid, like, I don't like seeing people who can afford paying school fees from their bank balance.
Why?
Because if you invested that same money, your return on investment
is what you should use.
What should be paying the school fees. And you know what that does for you? No matter what happens to you as a man, your children's school fees will be paid. Do you understand what I mean?
So it's better for us to have a lot of capital, invested somewhere, and we should be doing ROI.
Exactly, if you can. Okay, of course, we're all at different levels, but of course. So we started from why do you have to invest? So that return that you're seeing can take care of your problems, irrespective of how your core business is going. Even our richest man in Africa is receiving rent, is receiving ROI. Do you understand? Yeah. So let that take care of your expenses, whatever expenses it can take care of for you. And if you don't need it for expenses, reinvest it so that your personal net worth is growing. Okay, so this is why you need to invest, so that no matter what happens to your source of income, for the most part, your most important expenses are taken care of. Do you understand? We cannot be hustling every day.
It's tiring, by the way. So if you're just tuning in, we're discussing ethical investments for women, but it's looking like it's for everybody right now. Because, in short, spend your interest. Have investment somewhere and spend interest. It's easier, right? Now, we're discussing ethical investment. What does ethical investments really mean?
Ethical investment is just simply investment that aligns with your values. Okay. Investment that aligns with your values. So, values could be you want less pollution in the world, so you want to invest in companies that are promoting less pollution. Your values could be, I want better equity, gender equity. So therefore, I'm investing in businesses that are either led by women or businesses that are focused on serving women or that have significant leadership being women. Or I'm investing based on my faith-based investing. So I don't want to invest in anything that involves tobacco or gambling or prostitution or, or forbidden sectors, right? For one thing or the other. So I can choose based on those values where my money can go. Okay? So for
Faith-based.
faith-based.
Let's discuss faith-based. People would ask that, okay, so how many faith-based? So faith-based means Muslim or Christian and every other and any other religion. But let's case in point for being a Muslim. Where can we put our monies in faith-based that you know that, okay, fine, I'll still get my ROI. Do we really have ROI?
Oh yes.
Okay.
And it even competes favorably.
Oh.
It compete, and which is why you're not seeing it's only Muslims that are investing in, let's say, halal funds, right? Because the returns are massive.
You want to explain a bit more about halal funds?
Okay, so halal funds are
HALAL.
yes. So halal funds are basically funds that don't invest in interest, which is riba,
Okay.
which is forbidden for Muslims. Don't invest in anything gambling, and don't invest in forbidden sectors like alcohol or tobacco or prostitution or things like that. And the other thing is the money is followed more closely to ensure that it doesn't somehow simmer into some of these areas that you don't,
Want
that
your
are
money to go
forbidden, that are forbidden. And there are actually a number, and a good number of them are outperforming. I was just looking at one this morning, and their return so far this month is about 13%.
You want to mention? Okay, let's not mention.
It's about 13% because about 70% of that fund is in equity, right? There's one I personally use, which is Harvest. Harvest invest in different companies, but the funding they provide to those companies are always structured in a way that ensures it's halal, and the return on investment is typically over 30% per annum. So this compares very nicely with your typical conventional investment, and it's not restricted to Muslims or Christians. It's the fact that, look, you just want to invest based on certain values. You don't want to put your money blindly into something that could go into anything, right?
Okay, now still on women and still on faith-based investments. Now, can Islamic financial planning help women prepare for retirement and for their long-term goals?
Can Islamic financial planning help women
prepare for
their
retirement?
Any kind of financial planning
Can.
Okay, so Islamic financial planning just means that you're selecting investment channels that don't invest in forbidden things.
Okay.
But the most important thing is that the return that you get from it is sufficient or is substantial, right? So imagine if you were investing in something that was making 30% per annum consistently. Can that help you with your financial planning? Of course, yes. Because if I have, let's say, 10 million and I'm getting 3 million in a year, I just need to know.
For that 4 million.
No, I'm just saying for example.
Yeah.
If I had 10 million invested, I'm getting 3 million in a year, then I just need to know, okay, what expenses can 3 million conveniently cover for me in a year? And then I hustle for the rest. And then next year, I increase my 10 million to 20. And then I get 6 million return per annum. And then I can plan what that 6 million, until I reach a level where my return can at least, hopefully, take care of school fees. It's not easy. I'm not saying.
So this one that you've been hammering on school fees, right? It means that, because this is August, September,
I see what's happening now.
And with investments and inflation, how do we strike that balance?
Okay, so simply put, you need to find investments that return over inflation.
Say that again.
You need to find investments that give you return that is over inflation.
How do we do it?
Now you need to look for when inflation is at 20%, you don't put your money in a bond that is giving you 15% on the naira. Right? On the naira, maybe 15% or 10% on the dollar is fantastic, right? but let's say on the Naira, inflation is 20%. You look for something that pays you over that 20%. Something else I need to mention is, of course, higher return often means higher risk. So this is why you need to educate yourself and find what the risk level you're comfortable with, but at the same time pays you over that inflationary rate.
Okay. A Signals on 91.3, we're discussing ethical investment for women. If you have questions, comment for Amina Mohammed. 0809, WhatsApp 0809-234-5913. Or you can call us 0704 700 9913 or 0704 700 8913. Now, so I was in a class on Monday and the lecturer was, because I had to force myself back to school, the lecturer was saying that, and it was a gathering of women, I was saying that women prefer grants as against taking high risk investments because they don't like debts. And unlike our male counterparts where they are easy, they will take the debts and move on. But for women, they're a bit cautious of free money is better than having to pay debt. And the lecturer was affirming that the more you take debts, there are good debts and there are bad debts, but the more you take debts, you are refocused in your mind to want to pay it back. And I went to go and meet the mother. I want to buy a building, but it's looking like the debt will not kill. You know, sometimes you say, oh, you want to, is good debts or bad debts bad? Because when you tell people that you had debts as a business owner, they're like, what are you doing? You should structure it this way, that way. And like, so it's, and I looked at women across that room and they preferred a funding that would not give them headache. How can we balance that?
It's tough because we like our comfort. I mean, if I had my way, I won't be here today.
You have to be here because
if I had my way, I won't be here today because I would rather, cozy up in my bed and just
you need to teach more women now.
But I need to we need to get out of our comfort zone.
Okay.
And I think even women generally, we don't like to take on debt, right? But the way I think about it now, and we don't like to take, but the way I think about it now is that, first of all, the process of taking that debt helps you to structure yourself in a way that you ordinarily would not.
It will stretch your destiny.
No, as in before you get that loan approved, so many things that you were not doing before.
Bottlenecks.
It's not even just that. So many things you were not thinking about actively before. You start thinking about it actively. Yeah. So, for example, somebody will ask you, for example, on average, what's the turnover that your business is seeing? On a normal day, you're not thinking about that. You're just going and going and going.
With the flow.
But now you have to think about it. You have to reflect on what is your turnover, what is your actual cost, what is your, that's one.
You're thinking of audit reports.
Yeah, so then two. They ask you for collateral, and you're like, I have to start thinking about collateral. But you know what? There is some collateral you have somewhere that you never even thought about as collateral, but that process forced you to structure your life or structure your business
in a
way that in a way that now adds up to what you're trying to achieve. That's number one. That structure, it forces you. That discipline, it forces on you. Then number two is it also puts you in it pushes you to do more. And you know what? The way I think about it now is that if you take that loan, women, if they give you 5-year maturity, you want to make sure you pay before that 5 years.
Yeah, well, you want to pay within 2 years.
So it always looks very difficult.
Mentally stressing.
It always looks mentally stressful.
Stretching and stretching.
But at the end of the day, it helps you to add certain capital to your business that you otherwise would not have done. Because see, when you take 10 million naira loan for your business, what happens with that 10 million naira loan? That 10 million naira is additional 10 million injected in your business that you would not have done. So it forces you to grow. You understand? Because you have to pay back the bank 10 million, but you have to also demonstrate to the bank that
You have
10 million
character.
they gave you actually stayed in the business. So automatically, that amount you took went back into the business, into growing your business in a way that you ordinarily would not have done.
Why do you advocate for women? And why do you advocate that they have investments?
I mean, because we talk about economic empowerment for women all the time, but the more I sort of advise more women in this area, the more I realize that economic empowerment is just talk if you're not educating women on the avenues available. And more, I'm finding that women have opportunities before them that they're not able to take because they don't have the awareness or the education. So the moment you seek that knowledge, the moment you start to engage in this line of conversation, either with your spouse or with your, with your family members or whatever it is, the more those opportunities
Would come.
So it is a bit uncomfortable for us because it's out of our everyday comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's a very big key to help us unlock wealth for women. And I just feel like if more women can unlock more wealth, I just feel like the world would be a better place, because in yourself you have more peace, and then you give more peace to those around you. Okay, you have more knowledge, and then you give more knowledge to those around you. Like, we love to share, we love to,
So beyond gossip,
Yeah.
beyond Ashwebi, sorry, we need to talk more about money. Because money sometimes, permits me, money sometimes looks like an Herculean task because, it's for the men, right? But
Why is it for the men? Do I get to ask questions? Why
yes,
is it
you
for the
do.
men?
If you ask the general undertone of conversations between a man and a woman is, how much is he giving me? And I've had women come to meet me, and I'm like, you don't you have 2 hands and 2 legs? Can't you work and raise money for yourself? Because we have.
And you know what? We're not even, in this conversation, we're not even discriminating. If he's giving you, it's fine. But what are you doing with it? Thank you. Do you understand? So it's okay if he's giving you or if you're getting it by yourself, whichever way.
Invest the money. That's always.
That's it.
So some
That's
say
it.
invest
Because even if he's giving you, it's not. We can't sit down and assume he'll come forever.
And
We
those
can't sit
men,
down and assume he'll
if
come
they give you
forever.
1 million, if they not see how you spend that 1 million, they will not give you another one.
Even if you're fortunate and you have the man that'll give you every day, you don't know that he can do that for the rest of your life. So what are we going to do when it's not coming? What is your fallback?
No, what is your vex money for back for?
Let's even assume the best.
Let's even assume the worst case scenario. That what will be your vex money, and how do you invest your vex money as a woman? So some will say that, okay, gold. What do you think about people investing in gold? I read it. I'm like, okay, let me come and ask.
I think it's good. I mean,
Sector
start where you're at. Start with what you understand, but do something. Yeah?
I mean, I say we should do something.
But do something. If it's buying gold that you understand, buying gold is not bad. I mean, the price of, but of course, you can't speculate on buying gold in the short term. You can't say,
Okay.
I'm buying this gold and I plan to sell it in 3 months. By the way, the price of gold also fluctuates. People should know. The price of gold also fluctuates. But if you were holding it for the long term, it tends to pay off, right? So, but let's say investing in gold is what your secret plan is for your vex money. This man, he does not like to give me allowance. I'll be no problem. Every time he travels, I'll tell him, bring me back gold. And bring gold back every time you're coming back. But actually, that's the woman's savings. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So start where you're at. Those are the things we're talking about, like the opportunities before you that you don't even realize. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If I don't even, maybe he's not going to buy me a house because he doesn't want me to have that level of independence. No problem. Every time you travel, bring gold.
Shout
holding
out
in
to
my
our
cupboard.
aunties. They used
And
and our
they-
grandmas. They used to
That's how they used to pay school fees.
Yeah, 'cause I sometimes look at what comes first. She's doing well. Concentrate. What comes first? Okay. The awareness of the second one. The awareness. Which comes first? Awareness of investment or education?
Say that again.
What comes first? Should we keep creating awareness or we should keep educating them one woman at a time?
I think both.
Okay.
If we can do both. Don't they go hand in hand?
But it's one thing to have an awareness of something. It's another thing to, because what we're doing this morning is educating and creating an awareness for women to have more investment. Now, how then do we, and this is a burden for me, how then do we ensure that we stop falling for the Ponzi schemes of this world?
We have to educate ourselves.
Okay.
You can't just, it's good to invest, right? But
Yes.
you have to be educated about what you're investing in. And look, if you don't have the time to go into that level of detail in being educated, then you need to then find the safe bets. Okay. Safe bets will be, for example, investing in government security.
Treasury bills?
Yes, or the
Bonds.
or the non-interest equivalent, which is Sukuk, which is
SKUK.
SUK,
SUK.
which is typically used for infrastructure. Government securities is one, like you said. Gold is another. Real estate, is another. So you can start with what you already understand. Okay? But when you now, as you grow, you have to also evolve. You start with what you know. You can do 90% in what you understand and gradually start dipping your leg with 10% into, let's say, like I said earlier, Harvest, or let's say Stanbic Ethical Fund. Put 10% there. Watch how it performs. Do you understand? If you're a bit more bullish, you can do rather a higher percentage than 10%.
Have you ever met a bullish woman?
Bullish?
Yeah.
I have. Some women are amazing.
Tell us.
Some women are amazing. Some women take a bit more risk and a bit more aggressive, and you see them doing wonderful things that you think
So
are
which one woman has come to you and said, Amina, I need to invest this 100 million? And you're looking at her like, Auntie, all is well, what's going on?
A lot.
Wow.
A lot of women.
Okay.
A lot of women. I've had a woman come to me and say, I'm interested in Bitcoin. How do I go about it?
That's beautiful.
Yeah. But what I'll tell that kind of person is, first of all, educate yourself. And then when you educate yourself, you have to also dip your leg
Small
this
by
is coming
small.
from my risk averse self, right?
Yes.
I won't say risk averse, but like moderate risk.
What's the highest risk?
Moderate risk. But yeah, dip your leg gradually so that you can, invest something that you're more comfortable to lose.
And your mind can
In
carry
the
it.
highest risk investment, you can start with money that you know that you're more willing to lose, and then watch how it goes. Use that to learn how it, works and all of that. Then you can decide whether you want to increase or what you want to do.
As a female leader in finance, what lessons have you learned about advocating for inclusive financial systems?
I think that women always repay.
Always repeat.
Yes, women always repay.
Okay, that's one for us.
That's one thing I've learned. Another thing I've learned is that inclusive finance is based on a notion that finance is not generally available to all.
Okay.
But in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. In the ways I say no is that even when it's available to us, are we taking it?
Do we even know if it's available to us?
But why don't we know if it's available to us? We're engaged.
What about limiting of information?
We're engaged.
How do we
Keep
engage?
engaging. We leave our comfort zone, ask questions, with the intention to learn. Ask questions. If you want to know what is available in your bank, go into the bank and seek that feedback. Find a banker you know and ask them genuine questions. You can't say you don't know a single banker in your network that you can ask these questions. But are we even taking advantage of those opportunities within our network to ask questions? Or we don't want people in our network to feel like, this one is loan that she's taking to grow her business, so you don't want to ask them questions. If men were doing that, we'll be doing inclusive finance for men as well. Do you understand?
Yes.
So let's not be ashamed of
Asking questions.
Because it's what you want to achieve that you need to have in mind, and it's based on that you need to decide whether you're going to ask questions or whether you're going to be more reserved. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so long as you want to grow, you just have to come out of your comfort zone.
Now, speaking of questions, if you have questions for our questions comment, call us 070-400. No, 070-4700-8913 or 070-4700-9913, or you can call us 070-100-7913. Send us a WhatsApp message 0809-234-5913. If you have money kept somewhere and you want to know how to invest it, she's right here. She's not going anywhere. At least I can borrow another 5 minutes of her time, ask questions. Now, they say money is in Nigeria. Everybody keeps saying money is in Nigeria. But when the Ponzi schemes now fall out, you now start to hear people say, oh, I invested 200,000. And you're like, in this economy that we are all complaining about, people are having those kinds of money to put in Ponzi schemes. How do we stop these Ponzi schemes?
I guess the regulators are trying to do more and more to stop the Ponzi schemes, but I guess the hunger in the land will make it very difficult to do. I think that we need to sort of be a bit more detached and a bit more detached when we're talking about our money. You work for your money, so you don't have to invest it with people you know directly or indirectly. If you don't want to get caught up in a Ponzi scheme, go through the legitimate channels to find opportunities that are available that you have done your research on, rather than trying to invest through either hearsay or not even, like, I don't have to invest because you told me where to invest in, and I did not go to do the extra research. If I don't have time to do the extra research, focus your energy on investing in tried and tested channels that are formal and well publicized, like
banks, the money markets,
exactly,
mutual funds,
the stock market. Even if you don't have the time for the legwork, but if you have the time for the legwork, you're willing to take a bit more risk, then sure, why not? You can take a risk on a startup. You can take a risk, but the point is, you have to have that appetite and you have to do the extra legwork. So it's either you're willing to do it or you're not. And if you're not, then go through the safer, well-established channels. Right.
One more before because our time is up already, but let me stretch a bit by saying that sometimes we want to invest, but we don't have the patience for the money to grow. Why do you think this is so?
Okay, we don't have the patience for the money to grow.
Because you've had 15 years of seeing different funds, you've seen different people come and go with their monies, and some they say, oh, I want it immediately, some they say, okay, let's keep it. And then there's the risk of, okay, do I put my money in Naira or do I put my money in dollars?
I'll say mix it up.
Go ahead.
I'll say a mixed bag is always good, because then either way you can have different sources of income to take care of different types of problems, right?
Okay.
So mix it up in a way that you conveniently can. That's one. And two, patience to see our money grow, I guess. Number one, you can't do get rich quick schemes. They most often don't work.
They always crash.
And not always, right? But anything that goes up quickly also has a tendency to come down quickly. So if you can monitor actively so that you can quickly take your money out before it goes down, that's up to you. But if you know you cannot monitor actively, then get rich quick schemes. You need to know it's volatile. So I don't know whether it's a Nigerian thing, or I don't know, maybe it's a generational thing where we want to make money quickly because we see other people, how did they get here?
Yeah.
We want to get there. I mean, even if you were to do that, try to do it with a smaller percentage of your savings and then use the rest of your savings for things that are more steady. And you see if it's growing exponentially, then you can see the impact. If you were to put your money in something that pays 17%, right? 17% return every year is not great, but think about it from the point of view that 17% after 6 years means that the return you would have made is equal to the capital you invested.
Okay.
Do you understand?
You've gotten your money back already.
You've gotten your money back. But even better, if each year that 17% you made, you invested it back. Do you understand?
Yes.
Which means that, like,
the pool increases.
exponentially, the pool just keeps increasing. And at the end of 6 years, your return is now even more than what you initially invested. Do you understand?
Yes.
Your base case in this case
It's 17%.
17% per annum. And that 17% per annum times 6 means you've got your money
You've
back
got
as
it.
return, and also you've got your principal back.
Like you say, you got
Making
your
times
Joe
two.
back.
Making times 2. But if you were to put it back every year, then that 17% is now also generating another 17% on top of it.
And it continues.
And it continues.
Okay.
And then you can press the calculator to see where you end up. And then you can see the difference between keeping your money in the bank and the impact of reinvesting it.
Maths really called you. Mathematics really called you. No, mathematics really called you. Now, finally, while we wrap up, is what's your vision for a future where finance is a tool for global empowerment, female empowerment? In another 2 years, 3 years.
We're there. I mean, we're there. So we have a lot of development institutions that are setting up funds that are helping us to close that gap. Right? And we see a lot of women now accessing funds at cheaper rates than...
What's the cheapest rate?
I can't say.
16%.
It depends.
Okay.
It depends. Right? We have some women getting grants, like you said, which is even free money. So maybe cheapest rate is
Well,
zero.
that grant is not free money because the penny will go through.
Well, calculate the pain, and that's your cheapest.
Okay.
Calculate the pain, and that's your cheapest. But yeah, I mean,
You will submit documents.
why not? Why not?
Okay.
Why not? Think about the structure it helps you put in place,
True.
which you wouldn't have done otherwise. No?
So there's no free money in free town.
Probably not.
So for more development
Probably not.
funds.
Yeah,
that
so
women can
more of
access.
them are providing, those windows where women can get cheaper funding and things like that. I think what would be great to see is to see more capital being allocated to those kind of funds so that even more women can untap access to some of these funds, which would be great. But currently, what I'm saying is they're already doing these. And we just need to, again, educate ourselves, ask questions, engage with people we know can help our problem, solve our problem, and just, take it from there and see where we can get to.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for sharing your
you.
wealth of knowledge. To everyone who's listening, called and see, sometimes it's always like a masterclass because we have to keep writing notes. Even I am writing notes. So we'll come your way again next week, Saturday. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amina Mohammed.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. So that you know, cause of my neck. Obina, and then our lovely daughter who's with us. Thank you for waiting. Till we come your way again next week, Saturday, like we always see on Signals. Dream again, create opportunities for people. Because people will be people. Keep creating opportunities. Have a wonderful week, and God bless. Okay. And we can talk. Finally.
Yay!
Yeah.
Ah, please,
Nigeria 1997,
They're able to listen.
Destiny's Child
We'll
released
send-
their
When is
major
going to go on
debut
YouTube? When
song.
will it go on
It's already on
Change.
YouTube.
No, I mean the
Also,
edited
Pussycat
version.
released
No,
their
it's not.
debut single,
Yeah.
the first major hit, No No No,
There.
in November of the same year. In February 1998, the group released their self-titled debut album, which established the group as a viable act in the music industry, thereby winning the group 3 songs Lady of Soul,
Yes, you just hold on.
Best R&B Soul
Thank
Album
you
of
for
the Year.
having me. You need to take pictures. Okay. And you need to fill form.
Oh, that here.